Hello everyone, this is the 7th lecture for EEE 41. Today, we'll cover continuity equations, minority carrier diffusion equations, and minority carrier diffusion lengths up until quasi-Fermi levels. Our objectives for this lecture are the following. First, familiarize with the continuity equation and how it describes carrier concentrations in both time and position. List the assumptions for the minority carrier diffusion equations. Determine how minority carrier concentrations change in time or space using simplifications to the MCDE or minority carrier diffusion equations as applicable. And lastly, locate the quasi-Fermi levels in the EBD given the non-equilibrium carrier concentrations and vice versa. Let's recall first some concepts related to indirect thermal RG. For an indirect semiconductor whose RG mechanism is dominated by indirect thermal RG, the net rate of recombination and generation under LLI is dictated by the amount of excess minority carriers. For instance, for an N-type material, the change in hole concentration due to indirect thermal RG is given by minus delta P over tau P. When a material is in thermal equilibrium, the carrier concentrations do not change in time. In equation form, for holes, dP over dt must be equal to 0. Since no other processes influence the carrier concentrations at thermal equilibrium, then only thermal Rg must be the cause of Rg, and thus dP over dt must be equal to dP over dt due to thermal Rg. If we go back to the expression above, this is also consistent with the fact that there are no excess carriers at thermal equilibrium, and thus delta P must be 0, and therefore minus delta P over tau P or dP over dt must also be 0. Exposure to light of certain frequencies can cause carrier generation within a semiconductor. This process is called photogeneration, and we will denote the electron-hole pair or EHP or carrier generation rate as G sub L. This process occurs simultaneously with the indirect thermal RG that occurs within the semiconductor. Thus, with the presence of carrier generation inducing light and no other external processes that can cause RG, then the total change in carrier concentration in a material can be written as the sum of the change due to Rg and the change due to photogeneration. Right at the start of the exposure to light, the hole concentration will increase from its thermal equilibrium value. Thus, dP over dt must be greater than 0. In this case, generation due to light can be said to be stronger than thermal Rg, and the overall generation is amplified because of photogeneration and occurs at a faster rate than the rate that the carriers recombine. However, as the number of excess carriers increase, recombination also becomes stronger. Recall that dP over dt due to Rg or indirect thermal Rg is proportional to negative delta P, at least for N-type semiconductors. Thus, as carrier concentrations increase, the recombination rate also increases until it is able to catch up with the generation rate. By this point, a steady state condition can be achieved, and dP over dt must then be equal to 0. The equations can be rewritten, and it can be shown that the steady state is achieved when delta P has increased to a value equal to GL tau P. And note that this is always positive since generation rate GL must be positive, and tau, the average time before recombination, is also positive and cannot be negative. Now, aside from indirect thermal Rg and photogeneration, where carrier Rg or the change in carrier concentration is contained within the material, we will now consider what happens when carriers actually flow into or out of the material. The presence of carrier flow means that there must be some current going in or out of the material. Consider this slab of semiconductor where some current enters one side and another current goes out from the other side. We will consider the general case where the two currents are not necessarily equal. Now, the question is, how will the number of holes inside the infinitesimal volume change over time given the two hole currents? If the whole current going in is greater than the one going out, then the whole concentration within the infinitesimal volume must tend to increase over time. Now, if Jp at x plus dx is less than the current Jp at x, then for our infinitesimally thick semiconductor, the derivative of Jp with respect to x must be negative, or the current must be decreasing in space. The reverse must also be true, where if the derivative of Jp is positive, then more current must be going out of the semiconductor than going in, then the whole concentration within the slab must be decreasing in time. Again, for holes, if the current increases in space x, then more holes are leaving than entering, and the whole concentration must be decreasing in time. Thus, the change in P with respect to time must be proportional to the negative of the derivative of Jp with respect to x. The factor 1 over q is added to consider that each hole contributes 1 q of charge to the material. Now, if we also consider that Rg and other processes may also be occurring within the semiconductor, then we add these components. This equation is actually what we call as the continuity equation for holes, which describes how the carrier or the whole concentration in a material is influenced by both processes that change the carrier concentration in both space and time. However, note that this equation will still hold true even when the actual hole current is not increasing in space. Okay, so what then is the continuity equation for electrons? Consider this scenario where a semiconductor has electron currents flowing in and out of its two sides. Note also how Jn increases in space, and thus the derivative of Jn with respect to x must be positive. However, note that electrons are negative charges and current is defined for positive charges. Thus, in this diagram, more electrons are actually entering the material instead of leaving. A positive slope in Jn must therefore tend to increase the electron concentration as time passes by. Thus, we don't add a negative sign. We can also include these terms to consider that Rg also happens in the material, and note that other processes might also be occurring or applied. Again, this equation will still hold true even if the electron current is not actually increasing in space. Now, the two equations presented here are what we call the continuity equations, which is based on the conservation of carriers in both time and space, which also tells us that the carrier concentration must be continuous in both time and space. A non-continuous carrier concentration causes infinite diffusion current. A non-continuous current will cause an infinite increase in carrier concentration, and carrier Rg processes cannot instantaneously increase or decrease carrier concentrations. These equations are true in general, whether for majority or minority carriers, for intrinsic or extrinsic semiconductors, for degenerate or non-degenerate semiconductors, in equilibrium or not, steady state or not, etc. From the continuity equations, we will derive what we call the minority carrier diffusion equations, or MCDE for short. Recall that in the previous slide, we were talking about hole and electron currents without specifying the semiconductor type. However, MCDE is a special case of the continuity equation that is applicable only to minority carriers. That is, electrons in a p-type semiconductor or holes in an n-type semiconductor alongside specific assumptions. The first assumption is that the electric field must be very small such that the drift component of minority carriers can be disregarded, and thus we will be dealing only with diffusion currents. Next, N0 and P0 must be independent of X or that we have uniform doping. A few lectures back, we introduced non-uniformly doped semiconductors and have shown that built-in electric fields exist in these non-uniformly doped semiconductors. Thus, uniform doping is in sync with the weak electric field assumption. Next, low-level injection conditions must prevail. Indirect thermal RG is the dominant thermal RG mechanism, which is usable for silicon. And lastly, the only other process considered is generation due to light. We now apply the mentioned assumptions to the continuity equations to derive the minority carrier diffusion equation. In this slide, we are deriving the MCDE for a p-type semiconductor, and since minority carriers in a p-type semiconductor are the electrons, then our basis will be the continuity equation for electrons. First, since indirect thermal RG is the dominant mechanism and LLI conditions prevail, the thermal RG component can then be replaced with minus delta N over tau N. Since we are also considering only generation due to light, then the term for other processes is replaced with G sub L. Next, we expand N into the thermal equilibrium component N0 and the excess component delta N. Also, since the electric field is negligible, we replace J sub N with the electron diffusion current, Q dN dN over dx, where N is N0 plus delta N. Now, since the equilibrium carrier concentration cannot change in both space and time in a uniformly doped semiconductor, then we can zero out the N0 terms, or rather the derivative of N0. Finally, canceling the Q factors and applying the differentiation twice, we get this equation here, which we will call the minority carrier diffusion equation for electrons in a p-type semiconductor. As a last note in this slide, to aid in solving problems, the term G sub L will be used only for penetrating light, where carriers are generated throughout, including within, the material. If the light is non-penetrating or produces carriers only at the surface where the light hits, then do not use the term G sub L for that. We introduce a new notation where subscripts N and P will be used to explicitly denote if the variable is for an N-type or P-type material. Thus, P sub N must refer to the hole concentration, which is the minority carrier concentration in an N-type material. N sub P must refer to the electron concentration, which is also the minority carrier concentration in a P-type material. N sub N and P sub P must therefore refer to the majority carrier concentrations in an N-type and P-type material, respectively. Thus, the minority carrier diffusion equations can be rewritten as shown, with the only change is the inclusion of subscripts to denote the material type. This notation also reminds us not to use the MCDE for electrons when the material is N-type, or the MCDE for holes when the material is P-type. However, note that the notation is only used for the carrier concentrations. The subscript in tau sub N still represents for electrons, while the subscript in tau sub P still represents for holes and not the material type. This is in the same way that d sub n and d sub p are still diffusivity for electrons and holes, respectively, and not for n-type and p-type. Finally, note that while continuity equations for electrons and holes differ in one negative sign, MCDE for electrons and holes are perfectly the same except for the carrier concentration variables. This is because the diffusion current for holes have a negative sign, while that for electrons do not. Even as the MCDE are simplified versions of the continuity equations, they still remain to be complex because they involve differentiation in both space and time in the same equation. We will therefore consider special cases when using these MCDE equations. These special cases will still cover a lot of interesting and useful cases in our analysis of semiconductor material and devices. The first term can be zeroed out when the material is in steady state. The second term can be zeroed out when there is no diffusion current. Since diffusion current is based on the carrier concentration, the second term can therefore be zeroed when there is no concentration gradient or difference with respect to position or space. The third term can be zeroed out when there is no indirect thermal RG. This can be deduced in a problem where it is mentioned that there are no traps or that tau approaches infinity. The last term can be zeroed out when there is no light, specifically penetrating light. Note that out of these four, the most difficult to assess if it must be zeroed out or not is the second term. Being able to imagine how carriers will flow given the different conditions or perturbations is the key to determining if this term must be zeroed out or not. And of course, practice and familiarity will also help. Given that some of the terms of the MCDE can be zeroed out depending on the case being considered, then the MCDE becomes simpler and closed form expressions can be derived for the solution to the differential equations. However, instead of deriving them manually, we will just refer to this table of general solutions to the special cases of the minority carrier diffusion equations. However, to gain trust on this table, let's look at how the simplified forms of the MCD on the left relate to the provided general solutions on the right. The first differential equation can be rewritten and tell us that the second derivative of delta n sub p must be proportional to the same delta n sub p. This behavior can only be achieved by an exponential function. However, since we are considering second derivatives, we include a negative exponent function as well. Next, the derivative of delta n sub p is proportional to negative delta n sub p, and this must only mean that delta n sub p must some exponential function with a negative power. The third one can actually be solved by algebra. The fourth one tells us that the function has a 0-second derivative and therefore the general solution must be linear. The fifth one is similar to the second but with a constant term, while the sixth and last one is similar to the first but with a constant term. The equations presented here all assume that the material is p-type. And again, since MCDE is applicable only for minority carriers, then carrier concentrations in here are all n sub p. For completeness sake, we provide this slide which summarizes the general solutions when the material is n-type. All the equations here are similar to those in the previous slide, except that the carrier concentrations are now p sub n since we are considering an n-type semiconductor. In some of the general solutions, the term L sub n and L sub p appears. The formula for the two are shown and are a function of the diffusivity and the minority carrier lifetime, tau. L sub n and L sub p represent the average distance that minority carriers, meaning holes and electrons respectively, can diffuse into a sea of majority carriers before being annihilated. Since the diffusivity is in cm squared per second and tau is some second, then Ln and Lp must be in some cm or some measure of space or distance. Note also that L sub n represents the minority carrier diffusion length of electrons, since we are talking about, or for a p-type material, since we are talking about minority carriers. The reverse is true for L sub p, where p represents holes and not p-type. The formula for the minority carrier diffusion length can also be rewritten in terms of the carrier mobility, since diffusivity is simply proportional to the mobility by the Einstein relationship. And since mu depends on doping concentration and temperature, then so does diffusivity and the minority carrier diffusion length. When talking about semiconductors that are not in thermal equilibrium, the use of Fermi level becomes inappropriate, as there is no single energy that can define the occupancy and vacancy of energy levels, because the electron and hole carrier concentrations are perturbed and can go multiple ways. Thus, in non-equilibrium semiconductors, the Fermi level, by its definition, ceases to exist, and we use quasi-Fermi levels with an S that act similar to Fermi levels but not quite, thus the modifier quasi in its name. Note that when the material is not in thermal equilibrium, then delta N and delta P are not anymore zero, and we cannot expect Np to be equal to Ni squared. However, we would still like to preserve and use the relations N is equal to Ni times e raised to ef minus ei over kT, and P is equal to Ni times e raised to ei minus ef over kT. The problem is, these equations imply that Np is equal to Ni squared, which is not the case when not in thermal equilibrium. We therefore introduce quasi-Fermi levels, F sub n and F sub p, exclusively for electrons and holes respectively, such that we get the same equations but replace EF with Fn for electron concentration and replace EF with Fp for the hole concentration. These equations can be manipulated to isolate F sub n and F sub p. Note that since Np is equal to Ni squared may not necessarily hold, then Fn and Fp may be entirely different energy levels in our energy band diagram drawings. Now, how does the quasi-Fermi levels help us in the analysis of non-equilibrium semiconductors? Consider an N-type in thermal equilibrium as shown. The Fermi level can be computed and is dictated by the doping concentration. Knowledge on the Fermi level also allows us to compute both the electron and hole concentrations. However, these values are just the concentrations in thermal equilibrium. Now, what happens if, for example, we expose the material to some carrier generating light that both electron and hole concentrations increased? If we stick to the same Fermi level paradigm, then the fact that electrons increased will mean that EF must be higher in the EBD. However, since the holes also increased in concentration, then the Fermi level must be lower in EBD. This contradiction prevents us from defining a single Fermi level, and it is more convenient to define quasi-Fermi levels for electrons and holes that can move separately. We note that for electrons, if Fn is greater than the position of EF at thermal equilibrium, then there must be excess electrons, or N must be greater than N naught. The opposite is true, such that when Fn is below the original Fermi level, then there must be a deficit of electrons, or N must be less than N naught. For holes, if Fp is below the position of EF at thermal equilibrium, then there must be excess holes, or P must be greater than P naught. The opposite is also true, such that when Fp is above the original Fermi level, then there must be a deficit of holes, or P must be less than P naught. Now, under low-level injection, where the majority carrier concentration must not be affected significantly, then for N-type materials, Fn must approximately be EF at equilibrium, while for P-type materials, Fp must be approximately EF at equilibrium. Thus, in our example shown, since Fn significantly moved from EF, and it is an N-type material, then we can conclude that this scenario is not LLI. In summary, we derived the continuity equations for electrons and holes, which are based on the conservation of carriers in both time and space. The continuity equations are applicable in general for minority and majority carriers, in thermal equilibrium or not, in steady state or not, direct or indirect, etc. The only difference between the continuity equations for electrons and holes is the negative sign for the current component for holes. We also derive the minority carrier diffusion equations, or MCDE, from the continuity equations under certain conditions. That we use them only for minority carriers, very small electric field, uniform doping, low-level injection, dominant indirect thermal RG, and photo generation. In the MCDE, there is no more negative sign difference. We also now are able to write the MCDE using our new notation, where subscripts in carrier concentrations are used to denote the type of the semiconductor. We also introduced the minority carrier diffusion length, which is the average distance that a minority carrier diffuses before it recombines with a majority carrier. Ln is for minority electrons, while Lp is for minority holes, and are a function of the minority carrier lifetime and diffusivity or mobility. Lastly, we introduced the concept of quasi-Fermi levels, which can be used to describe the carrier concentrations through our energy band diagrams under non-equilibrium conditions. Before we end this lecture, we will summarize alternate conditions in determining if a material is in LLI or not. So far, we have been using these equations. Absolute value of delta P must be much less than P naught for P-type, and the absolute value of delta N must be much less than N naught for N-type in determining if LLI conditions are met. Note that these equations are based on the majority carrier concentrations. However, since a semiconductor must maintain charge neutrality, then the excess majority carriers are actually related to the excess minority carriers. Here we present the alternate conditions or equations that can be used to evaluate LLI conditions, although the derivation will be shown and explained only in the problem-solving slides. In these equations, the minority carrier concentrations are used and not the majority carriers, the actual concentrations and not the excess carriers, and no absolute values. Using these equations as basis will prove to be simpler and faster in examples to be discussed. And that's it for Lecture 7. Thank you very much.